You know, when I first began writing this review, I was thinking of doing this big parody opening thing based on either the game's intro or a certain song found within it. But then I realized something. It just doesn't deserve that! This game is so not worthy of any of that effort, and going through with even a small part of that idea would be giving this game way more credit than it deserves. I don't really know what I was thinking, because doing that sort of thing would just dignify something that is completely undignified. In any case, that whole thing is not going to happen, so I apologize for the somewhat lackluster opening here, but maybe you'll understand my reasoning a bit more after I've gone through the truly dreadful and amazingly incompetent experience that is Conker's Bad Fur Day. No, I'm not fucking kidding! Yeah, I know what most, if not all of you are already thinking. I've gone insane! How the hell can I not like this game? It's just so fucking brilliant, isn't it? I mean, absolutely everyone who's ever mentioned this game always goes on about how great it is, so I just have to be wrong, don't I? Well, I'm very sorry to disappoint you all, but you're the insane ones. I seriously can't believe that anyone could enjoy this game even a little bit. It's completely awful. What exactly is it everyone else seems to find so delightful about this turd? Well, I for one have no fucking clue, but let's take a closer look anyway and see what we can find. Most likely just a pile of shit. Well, I guess I should start by going over the basics of the game for those who might not be too familiar with it. Conker's Bad Fur Day is a platform game about who else? Conker. He's a red squirrel who drinks booze, uses bad language, and is obsessed with money and sex. So basically, he's just a squirrel version of pretty much any man in the Western world, I think. The game revolves around Conker's antics after a booze-fueled evening in a tavern. Basically, he's just trying to get home so he can relax with his girlfriend, Berry the Chipmunk. And yes, she has chipmunk titties. I guess that means Conker must have a couple of nuts. While Conker is trying to get home, the ruler of this world, the Panther King, is trying to get his throne's side table fixed as it's missing a leg and keeps spilling his milk. One of his servants, a Weasley professor in a hover chair, suggests using a red squirrel to prop it up, so the king sends out his minions to find him one. Yeah, I know. Fucking epic storyline, right? Don't get me wrong, the storyline isn't horrible, at least not for this sort of game, but it's certainly nothing all that spectacular either. It really is just about a squirrel getting tangled up in a series of more and more ridiculous situations that he, for some reason, has to solve, usually in exchange for a wad of cash. Okay, so some of these situations are a bit humorous and or fun, but mostly, it just feels like you're meandering around without much of a goal, and the events don't necessarily feel like they really connect that much to one another, if at all. Then again, I suppose the thing that's meant to keep you invested in this game is the fucking brilliant, hilariously funny, and oh so mature humor. I mean, a game that has an entire level dedicated to nothing but toilet humor just has to be mature, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Seriously, anyone who claims that this is a mature game is filled with more shit than the great mighty poo. There's absolutely nothing mature about this game. It's the shallowest, most immature and juvenile style of humor you can find. Now, don't get me wrong, I can appreciate a bit of lowbrow humor just as much as the next guy, but the thing is that this game keeps shouting about how mature it is when it clearly isn't. Everything from the cover to the first screen of the game to the actual game itself just goes on and on and on about how this is intended for mature audiences only and how adult it all is, but in reality, it's just fucking pandering. Like I mentioned, there's an entire level or area of the game fully dedicated to nothing but toilet humor, and I fucking mean it. This whole area contains nothing but poopy jokes, and I don't think a single one of them is all that funny. You have to make and roll around a giant ball of poo, the entire area is made of poo, and of course, there's the great mighty poo, the boss of this area, who is basically a huge, sentient, and singing pile of poo. So yes, this guy stinks. He's full of shit. He's such a turd. Obvious poop joke. And before anyone asks, no, I don't think the song is all that great. Oh, it's not horrible, and it's certainly performed pretty well, but I've definitely heard both better and funnier songs, so I wouldn't call this a masterpiece, even if it is a piece of shit singing about flinging shit. which, you know, is just so fucking funny. There are many other examples of this juvenile maturity bullshit as well, like the use of bad language for the sole purpose of being edgy, the overuse of somewhat gory and or bloody visuals, and the absurd, over-sexualized nature of anything you can think of, including one of the most unnecessarily and over-the-top sexualizations of any character I have ever seen. You thought giving female breasts to bunnies or chipmunks was bad? Well, take a look at this.
Conker, honey, fancy going for a bounce?
Really? Really? This was necessary? You really had to go there? You honestly needed to make fucking flower jugs? Well, why stop there? Why not include some crate nipples, wall balls, or fish dicks? Okay, so the story and humor isn't exactly the best, but if the game plays great, who cares, right? Well, this game certainly doesn't play anywhere near well enough to excuse the other elements. To begin with, let's take a look at the looks. I guess the visuals are okay, but I wouldn't say they're anything spectacular. No, I'm not just talking about the fact that these are Nintendo 64 graphics, which don't necessarily hold up all that well. I'm talking about the overall aesthetics of the game. Most of the time it looks okay, but in my opinion it's still way too brown, dark and or washed out and unclear. There are several times in the game when it's fucking impossible to distinguish buttons, levers and the like from the background textures, and sometimes climbable objects can actually be pretty much invisible. Just take a look at this situation. I fell down into this ditch, and at first it seems like I'm stuck down here. Is this a glitch or something? Should I have died when I fell down here? No, it's just that the only way out of here is so hard to see that unless you're standing in this one fucking pixel perfect specific area of the ditch, it completely disappears. Tell me you could see this rope right away. I fucking dare you. I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to get out from that fucking hole, but I don't feel like I could be blamed for that when the rope literally disappears unless you're looking at it from the right angle. Yeah, I know, graphical limitations of the time and all, but come on. Good games from this era found a way around those limitations. Make the road bigger, put in a ladder instead, make the road blink or give it a color that's easier to spot, make an alternate way out of the ditch, something. Seriously, when they fail at something as basic as making sure we can actually see the fucking objects of the game, then what hope is there for the rest of it? Well, it doesn't really matter how much hope you have, as most of it is pretty fucking horrendous. Why is it, for instance, that you barely have any form of attack? Oh, you have this frying pan you can swing around by pressing the B button, but its use is so limited that you might as well not have it. There's only a few enemies that can actually be dealt with using this thing, and most of them are the type of creature you have to carry from one place to another, so it's not like they would hurt you anyway. Other than the frying pan, you don't get squat. You can jump and glide in the air using your tail, and that's about it, really. Oh, you do get other forms of attack, but all of them take place at specific areas of the game, and you have to stand still on a contextual button while using them, which can cause some extremely frustrating situations. Take the level where you have to get out of a room that's filling with water while a bunch of electric wires dangle from the ceiling. This may sound alright, but as some of you may have guessed, the wires will electrocute you if they touch the water before you can cut them down. Again, maybe this sounds reasonable, but I'm sorry, not one part of this is handled right. Firstly, the water rises way too fucking quickly. Secondly, there are too many wires to cut down, and last and most important of all, the actual attack you use to cut them down is fucking atrocious. Not only do you have to stand in one of two spots in order to use this attack at all, but you also have to stand still while using it, and you have to be near pixel fucking perfectly accurate with your aiming, even though you have no aiming cursor or other way of being sure where your knife throws will go. In addition, you have to be fast as hell, but turning yourself around in order to line up your throws takes so long it's near inevitable that the water level will reach you way before you're able to cut down more than a single wire. But hey, that's just me being a fucking dipshit, isn't it? All games should have such wonderful, broken and unreasonable challenges, shouldn't they? I just can't appreciate the glory of this game because I suck at it, right? Well, let me explain something to you, you fucking asshole. I suck at Ninja Gaiden. I suck at Castlevania. I suck worse than the suckiest suck of all sucking time at more games than you can possibly imagine. But the thing is, I can still enjoy those games if they're fucking good. This is just a pile of dung. I mean, come on people, have some fucking standards. Okay, so before I go completely off the rails, I will admit that this game does have its moments, but they're just so few and far between that I have a very tough time even thinking of them. I guess the voiceovers are done fairly well across the board, even if they tend to use the same voices for a lot of the characters, and the controls work decently enough, although they definitely should have done something to smooth out the aforementioned contextual attacks a bit. Other than that though, I'm really struggling to think of anything I would describe as the least bit enjoyable. Alright, so I will admit that it is usually tolerable, but is that really enough? Shouldn't it be fun? Shouldn't it be interesting? Shouldn't it make you want to continue playing instead of feeling like a chore? I mean, even when the game has a somewhat decent idea, they just execute it so fucking terribly that it makes me want to puke. Like when you have to get Conker drunk in order to gain the ability to pee so that you can defeat or transform enemies. Sounds okay, right? Well, while Conker's drunk, he can barely fucking move. I'm not kidding, getting drunk makes him so fucking slow and sluggish that it completely ruins any and all fun this aspect could have given the game. In addition, you only have a relatively small amount of pee available every time you get drunk, and if you spend too much time trying to reach your enemies or target, you'll lose this ability altogether. That's right, not only does this mode make you slow and sluggish, it also gives you a very limited amount of ammo, and the effect only lasts a few seconds. I guess they might have been trying to make some sort of anti-drinking statement, but then again, this is the same game that had the, yeah, it's just awful gameplay. Also, if the drunk mode wasn't bad enough in and of itself, it gets even worse when the pissing ability is lost. When this happens, you obviously can't use the P attack anymore, but you also get even slower, or at least it seems so, and you can't do anything at all apart from walking until you reach these medical stations that return you to normal. This is somewhat easier said than done though, as Conker constantly stops to throw up while in this state, only adding further annoyance and frustration to the mix. While almost everything about this game is just terrible, the one thing that really stands out as annoyingly and surprisingly shitty is the fucking atrocious camera. I can't believe that anyone can be fine with this fucking broken piece of puke. Honestly, I'd forgotten just how bad it was before I started playing this game again, but fuck me if it isn't one of the worst. Okay, so it can work as it's at least functional most of the time, but every single time something even remotely important is going on, the camera has an unprecedented ability to focus on the completely wrong thing. Almost every boss fight is more of a struggle with the camera than the actual boss, and it constantly causes frustration, anger, and just all-around confusion. How the fuck am I supposed to dodge an attack or cause any damage to the enemy when I can't even fucking tell where they are, where to go, or what the fuck to do? Speaking of not knowing what to do, that's kind of a problem with the game overall. Oh, it's not like it's impossible to figure out what you need to do or anything, but considering that there is no form of map or any indication of any kind as to where to go next, it can get a little confusing and actually pretty frustrating. I guess it is sort of nice that there's basically no interface cluttering up the screen, but still, I think I would have preferred to have some sort of map or goal indicator. All things considered, I just can't believe how fucking popular this game is. Why the hell does everyone seem to love it so much? Because of the shit gameplay? The juvenile and actually immature humor? The overall lackluster story and setting? Or maybe people just think it's fun to be bored out of their minds most of the time? No, really, even if I were to ignore all the other problems with the game, I would still find it kinda dull. There really isn't all that much to keep me invested here, as it just feels like there's no peril to overcome or any sort of ultimate goal. You're just fucking around, and while that may be fun at times, it just gets really boring after a while. It just doesn't feel like my actions have any significant bearings on anything, so why should I even bother going through all of this bullshit? Okay, yes, there are obstacles to overcome and objectives to complete, but again, in the grand scheme of things, they just don't seem to matter. You know, I really should have put this game somewhere on my most overrated games list. I don't know how I left it out. I guess you can consider it a number 11 or something, even though it should probably be much higher on the list than that. In any case, this game fucking blows, and I seriously don't understand what everyone finds so fucking delightful about it. If you haven't tried it yet, I implore you not to listen to all the bullshit praise this game receives, as it's not worthy of even a small percentage of that. Please, please trust me when I tell you to stay the fuck away from this overrated, immature, disgusting pile of gaming feces, as I can guarantee you that you will regret the day you ever decided to give this game a try. I know I fucking do.